There are moments in life when we don't realize the weight of something until it's happening. Moments that feel ordinary at first, until your heart catches in your chest and you suddenly understand that life is about to shift. Just enough to make you emotional, reflective, and grateful all at once. For Kelly Ripa, one of those moments arrived unexpectedly, wrapped in surprise, wrapped in love, and wrapped in the kind of bittersweet emotion that only comes when you're about to say goodbye, just for a little while, to the person who feels like home. The story begins inside their apartment, long before cameras, long before the bright studio lights, long before the cheerful energy that Kelly and Mark Consuelos seem to carry everywhere they go. Kelly had just finished packing the last suitcase. Not for a breakup, not for a tragedy, not for anything dramatic in real life. This was a temporary separation, one of those rare moments where their schedules no longer aligned. Kelly had been invited to participate in a special project across the country, something exciting, something meaningful, but something that required her to be away from home for a few weeks. It shouldn't have been emotional. It shouldn't have been dramatic. But that's the funny thing about love. Sometimes the smallest changes feel the biggest. Kelly zipped the suitcase shut with a sigh, thinking she was alone in the room. She wasn't. Mark was standing in the doorway, leaning against the frame with his arms crossed, wearing a soft smile, the kind of smile that hides a dozen emotions behind it. Kelly looked up and said, "What? Why are you smiling like that? You look suspicious." Mark shrugged. "Just wondering if you packed enough snacks? Without them, you might start a riot wherever you're going." Kelly laughed, shaking her head. "Snacks? I'm emotional and you're thinking about snacks." Mark stepped forward, wrapped his arms around her waist, and replied, "Well, I'm emotional and I'm thinking about snacks. I'm very talented." Kelly pretended to swat him away, but she leaned into him, resting her forehead on his chest for just a moment longer than usual. Because even though they were both smiling, the room felt different. He felt it, she felt it. They both knew it. Kelly wasn't leaving forever. She wasn't leaving for something dangerous. She wasn't leaving because of conflict. She was simply leaving because life sometimes sends you in different directions, even when your heart wants to stay in one place. Mark gently tilted her chin up. "Hey," he whispered, "you're allowed to be a little sad. I'm sad too." Kelly gave him a half smile. "What if I'm more than a little sad?" "Then," Mark answered, "I'll be more than a little supportive." She took a deep breath, preparing herself to brush off the emotion with humor like she always does. But instead, to her own surprise, she felt her eyes fill with tears. Not the dramatic kind, not the loud, sobbing kind, just the soft kind, the kind that sneaks up on you without warning. Mark immediately softened. Hey, why are you crying? Don't cry. If you cry, I'm gonna have to tell people I made my wife emotional. Do you know how bad that'll look? They'll think I did something." Kelly laughed through her tears. "You always ruin the moment with jokes." "That's my job," Mark said proudly. "Your job is to be adorable and emotional. We each have roles." Kelly rolled her eyes, but it worked. Her sadness melted into laughter again, the two of them balancing each other the way they always have. She wiped her eyes, took a breath, and whispered, "I don't like saying goodbye to you, even for a little while." Mark wrapped his arms tighter around her. "Good," he whispered back, "because I don't like saying goodbye to you either." Their goodbye wasn't the kind shouted dramatically in a doorway. It wasn't fueled by conflict or fear. It was just two people deeply in love adjusting to a moment neither of them wanted, but both of them understood. Soon after, the morning arrived. Suitcases by the door, coats in hand, coffee cups on the counter, their usual morning routine suddenly feeling a little too quiet, a little too slow, a little too different. Kelly kept fussing with her bag. Mark kept pretending not to watch her fuss. She finally noticed and said, "Stop staring. You're making this harder." Mark shrugged. "I'm not staring. I'm supervising." "You're staring." "Fine. But staring is my right as your husband. It's in the vows. You said so." Kelly laughed again, shaking her head. And then something happened that caught her completely off guard. Mark stepped behind her and wrapped his arms around her shoulders in a warm, secure embrace, different from their usual casual affection. This hug felt deeper, heavier with meaning, like he was silently saying everything his words couldn't express. Kelly closed her eyes.
They just stood there, breathing, holding, remembering that even temporary goodbyes feel tender when your favorite person is involved. Finally, she whispered, "I'll miss you." Mark responded instantly, "I'll miss you more." Kelly scoffed, "No, you won't." "Yes, I will." "You absolutely will not." "Kelly Ripa, do not challenge me on missing you. I have Olympic-level missing you abilities." She laughed again, shaking her head as tears formed at the corner of her eyes. This time, she didn't hide them, because the truth was simple. Kelly Ripa wasn't afraid of the project. She wasn't afraid of traveling. She wasn't afraid of change. She just didn't like the part where she had to say goodbye to Mark. She turned around to face him fully. "You know what the worst part is?" she asked softly. "That you forgot your charger again?" "No," Kelly said, laughing. "The worst part is that you always make the goodbye harder by being so what?" Mark smirked. "So handsome, so charming, so irresistible?" Kelly paused dramatically. "No, so annoying." Mark placed his hand on his heart. "Wow. Hurtful. But," she added softly, "also so good to me." Mark's expression shifted instantly to something warm and tender. He kissed her forehead gently and whispered, "I'll be right here when you get back. Nothing changes that." Kelly took a deep breath, nodded, and finally reached for the door. Before she stepped outside, something inside her turned around one more time. Her heart, her instincts, her need to see him just once more. Mark was still standing there, arms crossed, soft smile, eyes focused completely on her. She walked back, wrapped her arms around him tightly, and let herself feel everything, every emotion, every warm memory, every reason why this goodbye felt heavier than she expected. It wasn't sadness, it wasn't fear. It was love. Love that had become her home. Love that would be waiting for her. Love that made even temporary distance feel like a mountain. She finally whispered, "It's just a few weeks." Mark whispered back, "I know, but a few weeks without you is still a few weeks without you." Kelly smiled through tears, stepped away, took a breath, and walked out the door, carrying his warmth with her. As the door closed softly behind her, she heard Mark call out, "Text me when you land, and don't forget snacks." Kelly laughed as the elevator doors shut. That was their goodbye. Beautiful, funny, emotional, human. And later, when Kelly shared the story publicly, she didn't talk about the sadness as a burden. She talked about it as a reminder that when you love someone deeply, even small changes can feel big. Even short separations can feel tender. Even simple goodbyes can feel like a tearful moment worth remembering. Fans connected instantly, not because the story was dramatic, but because it was real. Because it showed a side of Kelly and Mark people don't always get to see. Because it proved that love isn't measured in grand gestures, but in tiny moments like holding each other before a suitcase-filled morning. And in the end, Kelly's message was simple. Goodbyes are hard because love is real, but love always waits.